In our introduction to iteration, we have three multiple choice questions. The first question asks, given what you've just learned, when should a while loop be used over a for loop? First choice, whenever I want. Don't tell me what to do. Probably not the right answer, but we'll see if it ends up being the best one. Two, when you know exactly how many times you need to iterate through something that rings a bell, but it doesn't really. I think that's the other way around, right? If I know exactly how many times I want to do something, I'm probably going to use a for loop, right? And only execute at that time. If I use a while loop, it might become infinite. Um, Never, right? Sometimes you don't know how many times you're going to need to do something in a program, so never can't be an option. And our last option is when you aren't sure how many times you'll need to iterate over something, right? And that's probably our best bet, right? We're saying while some condition is met, we're going to keep doing the thing, and then some condition will be met, and we will then stop doing the thing. Second challenge, it says, for which of the following situations would a for loop be most appropriate to use? First, if there's an unknown number of iteration before the loop needs to terminate, it would maybe be kind of difficult to use a for loop here. So let's keep going. Second, if the program needs to run an infinite amount of times, um, might be difficult to make that happen with a for loop. If the program needs to run a set number of iterations, that actually sounds like a great application for a for loop. And then the last choice, never. Of course, we are going to use for loops actually fairly commonly in computer programming, regardless of the language. So let's go ahead and say if the program needs to run a set number of iterations. And lastly, it says, in which of the following situations would a while loop be most appropriate? First, never use while loops. Again, right? Probably not an option. You're probably going to have to use one at one point or another. So we'll continue on. Anytime a for loop can be used, so could a while loop, which is the better choice. I don't think that's true, right? Because we always have the chance of an infinite loop with a while loop. So we want to avoid that when we can. If we can design it out of our function, we should take advantage of that opportunity and do so. So I'm going to say no on that one. Three, when only a finite known number of iterations is required. That doesn't make sense to me, right? If I know how many times, I'm going to use a for loop. And then lastly, when an unknown number of iterations is required to find the solution. And that is typically when we do use a while loop, right? So that's when it's going to be most appropriate. So that's it for this lesson. We're going to actually dive into coding for loops. We're going to traverse through some lists. Really only worry about iteration with for loops for now. Cover while loops a little bit in greater depth a little later on. But I look forward to seeing you in the videos over in the next couple of lessons.